So welcome again. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Mona Pearl Treball. I am a retired colonel from the United States Air Force Nurse Corps, a professor and specialty director of veteran and military healthcare academic programs at University of Colorado College of Nursing. And I came to the college after my career in the military. I was active duty for 5 years, and then I went reserve, and then the rest of my career I was in the Reserve Corps, but my last two tours I was activated. So in that in-between time, I taught at 5 different universities, and that gave me a whole academic career and an academic trajectory, and I really understood this whole academic world, and all my research was around the military. So I had this military veteran perspective from the battlefield, and my last couple of tours were at the Pentagon and with the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Air Force, and also as the medical director for the Air Force Reserve, and had the opportunity to write policy. So I've, everything from the battlefield to looking at the entire enterprise view made me realize we have a great system, but we could be doing it a little bit better. I also had the experience of being a family member because my second husband was a active duty military guy, had a lot of deployments, a lot of PTSD, and walked away from the family. And it was quite the family experience that I had. And then I had 3 cancers while I was in the service. And that gave me a patient perspective, really seeing it from the bed, from the bed, and then knowing it from the other side where I'm standing at the bedside. I thought we could do this better. And so when I retired, I came to University of Colorado, looked at, is this really a unique specialization? And do we have enough to make this a degree program in and of itself? I always thought I should be able to check the box. I'm a military nurse. I'm a nurse that cares for veterans. I wanted to have that certification, and we didn't have it. And I'm like, but I saw this as a very unique population and a very different delivery system. And the service-connected conditions are very different for this population. And when you look at specialization overall, we've had specialties from Greek Roman times to the present, and specialties are defined differently across the world, actually, and across over time. And it can be very different. It can be very holistic, like internal medicine or family practice. It can be very diagnostic, like radiology, or technique oriented, like surgery, or age, like pediatrics, or you get a pediatric cardiology. And military environments and occupations can kind of fall into environment, and then you could also think of it as a population, like public health. And so specialty disciplines can overlap, and categories are not always exclusive. Some of the common criteria across all of the different disciplines is that you clearly define the specialty, that it is a knowledge base that is particular to the practice. You have to be able to identify a need and a demand for that specialty, and that there are specific competencies. One of the things that I really latched onto is that you had to have defined educational criteria or specialty preparation or a graduate degree. And I was like, ooh, that's what I can do. I know this. I know that we could actually have a graduate degree. I did see it was practiced nationally, internationally. We have lots of practitioners around the world, and we have some different types of associations. And we're actually working right now on creating a MilVet nursing association that's going to span both the military veteran and community who take care of this population. So caring for service members and veterans, it happens in the military health system, in the VA, and it happens in the community. This is a congressionally mandated one-party payer system, and change is literally an act of Congress. And Congress wasn't really set up to run a healthcare system, so it makes it very cumbersome. There's definitely some positives to this being a governmental system, but there's also some ways in which we need to be able to learn to work with that. We have potentially over 30 million beneficiaries, over $300 billion a year budget. That's our taxpayer dollars. Hundreds of thousands of providers and millions with service-connected disabilities. How much care is actually in the community is very difficult to quantify, but we know that approximately 60 to 80% of service members and veterans can get care in the community because we don't always have it within our systems. And so we refer out to the community. 1 in every 10 patients is a veteran, and 1 in 4 dying patients is a veteran. And our community providers often don't understand this population. They may not be comfortable asking questions. Sometimes we're not even comfortable asking the questions because we haven't really studied it enough to know. And the military members have been in very unique environments, had a lot of exposures, whether it's in training, at home, in garrison, or when they're deployed. They have all kinds of material that are chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, explosive. There are environmental exposures. There's all kinds of machinery that we use, like airplanes and ships and tanks. I was a flight nurse. I know that being on the airplane I was on a C-130, that it leaked and that we had a lot of radioactive energy coming at us. And many of the flight nurses, such as myself, ended up with cancers from that. So that is just what we have to work with. Part of the nature of being a military member. World War II, we saw a lot of these types of conditions because there was a lot of mustard gas testing. There's a lot of nuclear weapon testing. There was actually a lot of cold injuries and neurological vascular conditions. Cold War continued with the nuclear weapons, often referred to as atomic vets because of the exposure to radiation, seeing a lot more cancers from this population. Although both of those populations tend to be on the very seniors of our life, and they're unfortunately passing. And so we have very few members like that. Korea tends to be maybe a forgotten war. A lot of cold injuries in this war, a lot of neuropathies. We'll see a lot more diabetes now in later life. PTSD is actually flaring more and more with this. Well, PTSD has happened since ancient times. In our generations, this is where we tend to start seeing it more. Vietnam, definitely what we always associate with it is Agent Orange and different herbicides. There were many, many different types of agents. Agent Orange was the one that we hear of the most. A lot of hepatitis in this war, and actually the VA has been amazing with what they've done with veterans with hepatitis. And they've really reached out and have treatment for it for every single veteran. Pretty amazing. A lot of PTSD because this generation was not appreciated. And we're seeing a lot more cancer. There's a lot of traumatic injuries and amputations. And I know I'm speaking to the choir because you probably see these veterans all the time. In the Gulf War, we had a lot of exposure to biological and chemical agents. Smoke, we're seeing a lot more of this smoke when we have the PACT Act now. Depleted uranium was big in here. A lot has been associated with ALS and of course PTSD. We're seeing that, and we'll see that more and more. Afghanistan and Iraq, well, continuing with a lot of the same injuries, we're seeing more penetrating and blunt trauma. Burns and blast injuries tend to be very much a hallmark, more spinal cord injuries. There's been a lot of vision injuries, a lot of traumatic amputations from the blasts. Again, with the depleted uranium and the mental health issues, really big. Don't have it on the list, but we're seeing and hearing more about military sexual trauma in this population. And while that may have happened continually, it's being reported more, which is good because it shouldn't happen at all. So looking at all of those different eras and examining what the standards were, you could say, obviously, there's a need and demand. We have over 30 million beneficiaries, millions of conditions, tens of millions of visits a year in each of our system, probably hundreds of millions. A very discrete body of knowledge and research that supports evidence-based practice, and it's practiced all around the world. So it really, truly is a specialty. And this just gives a slide of how the military is operating in that world, which I think kind of helps set the stage. And before we go into, like, I'm going to talk about the classes, I actually want to share a video with you guys about coming from this military environment and what some of our members have dealt with. So let me just find the right thing. And I want to play Ron video. Play that video next.
They call me Doc, but I ain't got no degree. When it hits the fan, they're calling for me. From Bluegrass, Kentucky, red blood on my hands. Nobody calls me hero except for my friends. Yeah, I woke up from dreams to find out that they were real. Well, I can tell you how it went, but I can't tell you how it feels. 'Cause I've seen it. To make sure there's getting better on. The smiles, the tears, call me Doc. They all know my name. Cause it's stitched on my chest and it hangs on this chain. You won't read it in the paper, see it on the TV, but I don't need no fame. That's fine by me. Yeah, when they're broken, bruised, I know just what to do. My job always starts. Job is through. Yeah, I've seen it all. To make sure there's getting better on. The smiles and the tears. Oh, you know the heartache, looking you, am I gonna make it? You gotta lie. Yeah, they call me Doc. I ain't got no degree. When the shit hits the fan, they're calling for me. From Bluegrass, Kentucky, with red blood on my hands. Nobody calls me hero except my old man. Yeah, they call me Doc.
Pretty powerful stuff. And I think it gives you an appreciation for when you care for our nation's heroes. That's what I think about them. So thanks for hanging in there and watching that. I know it can be a little tough to see.
Yeah, I've never seen that video. That was really powerful. Holy
Very
cow.
powerful. And it's, actually, we have a very strong connection to Creative Vets, and they come to our annual conference. And we do a post conference with them every year. So the first year they presented, the second year we did a songwriting workshop where we wrote songs with them. And we had everybody in the conference, veterans, providers, nurses, family members. It was very, very powerful. And then this last year we did a collage art workshop of really repurposing our memories through song and music. And that is now on exhibit at Denver International Airport. So if you're at DIA in A terminal, when you come over the bridge after security and you go down, you'll see these posters of the songs and the veterans who wrote them. And then if you go into that mezzanine level, there'll be a showcase of the art that we have done from our conference. And so we're really trying to make an impact in a lot of ways from the University of Colorado. We have the education, we have research, and we have these practice and partnership collaborations, which are really important to bring everybody together to care for this population. So now my job is to tell you a little bit about the education piece. And then if you have questions, of course, you'll have time for that. So we have 6 specialty courses. We rolled out the first course in 2015 and started the Masters of Science in 2017. We have a postmaster's graduate certificate, which is like a second master's, a PhD with a graduate certificate, and a DNP and VMHC leadership, which was just started during the pandemic in 2020, and we'll have the first graduating class this December. We also have a graduate certificate, which is for anybody in any field that would like to come in and learn this. So it could be for lawyers, it could be for doctors, it could be for physical therapists. Anybody who really wants to care for this population that is a non-nurse, we have the graduate certificate option. Or if you want to put your toe in the water and just take a course, then that's the way to kind of do it as a non-degree. Everything is completely online. It is interprofessional, and we do pull our speakers from the VA, the military, from academia, and the community. The graduate certificate, as I was saying, is online, interprofessional. It can be anybody working with this population. It is not a degree program. It is non-degree. So that means you would not be eligible for financial aid with this, that you would normally get federal financial aid with the graduate certificate. It is a mechanism, though, by which you can start to take courses. If you decide, I want to do the degree, but I want to start right now, you can sign up for the degree and the graduate certificate and start in the grad certificate, and then all the courses will roll into the degree. So that's another way to go about doing your entry. The Masters of Science includes an MSN core of 4 courses: theory, research, evidence-based practice research, policy and politics in nursing, and informatics. So that's sort of an MSN core that all of our master's students have to take across all the specialties. And then we have a veteran and military healthcare, VMHC, 6-credit core. That's 18 credits, and a practicum or an internship where you put it all together. So the Masters of Science is 32 credits. A postmaster's as basically a second Master's of Science degree, and we make sure that you have the core courses, and then you have the VMHC core and the practicum to put it all together. The PhD, here you have 2 applications. You apply to both the PhD program and the VMHC graduate certificate. We try to fuse your dissertation and coursework so that if you're planning to do your dissertation on the military and veteran population, then we pick the courses that best support what it is that you want to do. And those credits can also be used for the PhD specialty electives. And we do recommend that you do the entire graduate certificate so that it's also on your transcript and you have more of the curriculum as a basis. I've had several students who have gone on or who are doing the PhD, and they've come back to make sure they actually complete the graduate certificate because they actually need those components of the curriculum to have it really support their dissertation. And then we have a DNP and veteran military healthcare leadership, where it's a combination of the VMHC specialty curriculum. We add leadership DNP, and it's a indirect care. So it's not a nurse practitioner degree where you're going to get an APRN, but you would be advanced practice nurse, which is not a second licensure. It is a second degree. You would be a doctor. It would be a doctor of nursing practice. If you do both the BS and the DNP together, it's called a BS to DNP. Or you could do the master's as the first step, 32 credits, and then apply to the DNP and finish it out in 2 more years and complete the DNP. If you already have a master's and you're going into the DNP, then it's about 41 credits. Everything is very individualized because we do look at what you have completed in the past and make sure that we do a gap analysis so that you are only taking the courses that you need to take. You don't have to repeat courses that you may have taken at the graduate level before. So I look at this very clearly. And actually, in this photo is a student who completed the master's and came back to do the DNP. And this is one of her veterans. They've given me permission to use this photo. And she's actually recruited several of her nurses into the program because she felt like it was so valuable in terms of really being able to provide care and see this as a specialty area. So I'm going to talk very briefly about what the 6 specialty courses are, so you have a little bit more insight into that. So the first one is Veteran and Military Healthcare Systems. Like I said before, this is a very special system. It is regulated and guided by congressional law, so we need to have more of an understanding of legislation. It is socio-political. It is very economic. We have to look at the ethical issues and what are the current national healthcare things that are confronting the system and how are we delivering care? What is the overall structure? How does it function? What are the processes and how can we influence those? The absolute most important course in this entire curriculum is the psychological health care for our veterans and service members. If we are going to provide care, we need to understand the whole person. You need to have an understanding of the warrior ethos, understand veteran military culture, look at some historical perspectives of war. And in this course, we really take a much deeper dive into PTSD, traumatic brain injury, TBI, suicidality, and any of the effects of psychological health on the family and parenting from the perspective of the service member. So this is from where the service member is sitting. Who are they? How do they operate? What are the issues that they're contending with that affects their psychological health? Absolutely very fundamental to all the care that we give. And because our veterans are not an island and they're part of family and community, we have a course that supports our veteran military families. And we explore it from the family perspective. What is it like to parent? What are the issues related to deployment and reintegration and compassion fatigue? How do we live with the sequela of the combat stress? And in this course, we also take a little bit of a look into how can we help prepare our civilian providers and what would be maybe our family care interventions. So equally important, we want to involve our community and really support our veterans all around. The most discreet of the courses is this one, Wounds of War, Military and Veteran Disability Evaluation. For those who are in the military, this is whether or not they're fit for duty. What makes them fit for duty? What makes them unfit for duty? If they are separating from the service, whether they're retired or medically retired or separating, they get evaluated. And how they get evaluated is based on a law that is 75 years old, maybe more than 75 years old. And parts of that law are intact to this day, and many, many parts of it have changed. But understanding that legislation is really important in order to be able to deliver the best care that we can to our veterans and make sure that we document and ask the right questions so that they get credit in relationship to the law, which will give them the disability evaluation rating that will make them eligible for service and access to care. So it's a very important and it's very discrete content. And actually, I asked the students several times, do you think we really need this? Because I tend to lecture in this class more than any other. And they always tell me, yes, absolutely. And one student said, I want to take it again. And she actually did, made an A in it and came back and took it a second time. So it really is really important content that is very discreet and very different than any other system in the world. One thing that I think is really important is that we have a humanities perspective in with this. And so we developed one on women in war, and women as a coming up population in both the military and the VA, and understanding the roles of women during war, both those in the military and those not in the military. What are some of the gender specific policies for our women service members? What are deployment considerations? How can we relate to reproductive and urogenital health, military sexual trauma, and what are the psychological effects for our women? We also look at transgender, both transgender women and transgender men in this course. This course was developed with anthropology and health and behavioral sciences, so it really does take more of a humanities flair. And I really love how it complements everything and it brings that diversity out. Even though we do talk about diversity throughout the curriculum as a thread and ethics as a thread, in this we really focus in a little bit more. The sixth course, I think this is the last one, that was developed is Caring for Veterans, those who have chronic conditions, aging, and end-of-life care. And I have to say, this has become my second most fundamental course in the curriculum. The chronic conditions, you could have that in your 20s. You know, because of all the exposures of our military members, this can happen at any time. So this explores aging, chronicity in our veteran populations. What are the environmental exposures at all those different eras that we talked about in the beginning? And the CBRNE, the chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, explosive materials. How do we do an exposure assessment? How do we look at that? And then we look at those specific eras and that very sacred time of life, that end of lifetime, and how can we support them best in those moments? And then we get to put it all together and have an internship where you choose your preceptor, your project, what you want to do, and it is supported all the way through. And it can be in anything. It can be it can't be your exact job, but it could be something that supports your job. It can be in the community. I had a nurse who was a commander in the Guard. She was also a nurse manager in the VA, and she had 4 children and decided to do her project with the school system because she wanted the teachers to understand her children. You know, so truly the sky's the limit. As long as it relates to the veteran or the military population, I can work with it. And we've had some amazing projects. I do want to play a little video from one of the early students. So let me just go back to that other video and show you this.
Hi, my name is Sonia Barnes. I am currently a registered nurse at the Denver VA. My practice area is the gastroenterology lab. I was looking to further my education, and I was looking at the CU website and came upon this program. After I saw, the pamphlets and things, no more contemplation was necessary. I decided to go ahead and go for it. I may be a little bit biased as I'm a veteran myself. I just decided what better way to serve my fellow veterans than learning more about them. I just read this quote a couple days ago, actually, from an unknown author. So the quote went something like, a veteran is someone who at some point in their life wrote a blank check payable to the United States of America up and to the amount, including their life. So I work with veterans, and this statement alone makes me, it encourages me, motivates me, and drives me to learn how to better care for them. Besides that, at some point in your career, no matter what nursing path you take, you're going to encounter veterans. You're going to be responsible for their care. And personally, I would be thrilled if my care provider knew a little bit about veteran culture and what my background is. For me, it was a great learning experience in that I thought I knew a lot. Being in the military for 10 years, I thought I knew a little bit about veterans and military culture, but this whole program was definitely an eye-opener for me. Actually, scenarios and experiences that I had as a soldier, a lot were explained in this program. In addition, the things that veterans go through, the issues, the concerns, the trials, whatever veterans and their families go through, it was thoroughly explained, throughout this course. And like I said, it was definitely an eye-opener for me. Curriculum overall, I felt was very well organized. It was very well timed, meaning during a certain module, there were questions answered. You would kind of ponder over questions with your peers, and then you wondered what next. You had questions after that. So then you open the next module and your questions are answered. So that's what I mean by very well timed. Definitely this is something that I can take back and build upon. In my practice, in my career, well, first and foremost, I'm my patient's advocate. The things that I learned here, I have full confidence that I can go back and kind of be the up and coming specialist, so to speak, in this area as far as my workplace. We just got a new manager actually, and she just recently voiced concerns over knowing about the veteran culture. She has no idea. So I feel like it's my duty to teach her these things. I think the eras, the different eras of veterans and the different war and the corresponding conditions that go along with those eras really enlightened me. They opened my eyes a bunch. Definitely that's something in your practice area, just knowing the different conditions that could exist with the different eras. I think the single most important thing to do is to ask questions, to really assess and ask questions, because a lot can be learned with simply by listening. And that's why I love working with the veterans now, is because I can relate somewhat. We have a camaraderie or a certain bond that nobody can understand unless they were a veteran. So I think this really unique population and caring for them is really important. It's important for people to learn more about them and their background and taking care of them.
So I think Sonia says it so well. The only thing that I would say with that is that I think our VA nurses who are caring for our veterans also develop a very special camaraderie and understanding of them. And that being with them, there's this transference and this appreciation of who they are and what they've done. And I think that comes through. I think that's why we like to take care of them. So overall, this program, I think, is very engaging. I think that if you like this population, you are going to learn so much. I've had so many people tell me that their eyes have been opened and they want to know more. So I'm going to say a little bit about admissions, but then I will turn it over to Liz. So there are some priority and final deadlines. So I'm just going to point those out for fall and spring. If you're applying for this coming spring, you still have till October 1st, and that would be a start at the end of January. And you can also fill in an application for next fall, but we start spring and fall. And all of our applications are through NursingCAS, and except for PhD students from another institution. And if you're in a PhD program, then you can apply via Nexus. And that is a special only for our PhD students. And there's lots of information online in our program. Here are what some of the other things that the students have said. They really get the chance to apply the content in their course. The class helped me so much in my career, not just in climbing the ladder, but also in understanding my patients. I've changed my practice because of them. Worked in the military 30 years and still learned so much from this program. I think that feedback is very timely. We try for that. I think the other hidden gem in this, as this person says, it develops relationship with other peers. You start to really form this network with nurses from VAs all across the country. And I recently at our conference had a presentation from 3 of our graduates, and they were all looking at how they implemented the PACT Act. One was in DC or New York, one was in Texas, and one was in California. And they were still all working together across the country. So it's a beautiful part of this, that you develop these special relationships. And now I'll turn it over to Liz.
Yeah, awesome. I feel like I always just get so emotional and just bought in. I always tell Mona every time we do these webinars, I'm like, I just want to join the program because I just think it's such special work and it's so powerful, and I think it's so needed. And I love that folks are interested, because I don't know, it truly does. It's like that quote that we use on campus sometimes. It's work of the hands, work of the heart, and work of the head. I think our VMHC program like really just captures that perfectly, right? But anyway, transitioning to admission. So if you're really looking at some of our programs, all of our programs across the board, including our VMHC, we do prefer a 3.0 GPA from your previous bachelor's work. If you have any master's work, we also would prefer the same. We also are going to be looking to see that you, which Crystal, I know you did, but Ada Marie, that you attended a regionally accredited institution. And so if you are looking at our master's or our postgraduate certificate, and as well as the BS to DNP, we would be looking at those pieces in terms of the 3.0 and the bachelor's degree from accredited institutions. We're also, if you're applying for the PGC, we're going to look that you completed your curriculum in an institution that was CCNE or ACEN accredited. Shoot, and I always forget to fix this piece. So we're also looking for the evidence-based practice courses from your undergraduate curriculum, as well as a statistics course. So know that those are also additional requirements.
And don't let the GPA stop you if you have a lower GPA or it's been decades since you've been in school and things have changed. We really do a holistic admissions. So
yeah.
Make sure that you understand that. Thank you.
Yeah, so when you're going to apply, and I know Mona already mentioned this, Nursing CAS is truly where all of our applications live, and where all of the documentation that you submit are going to be housed. And so essentially while you're working on that application, it does take time. So we encourage you to give yourself some time to be completing it, just because it is, applying for a program like this is a lengthy process, because we do take a holistic approach when we're reviewing your application. And so that means that we also need to have an ability to really look at your true background and the work experience and really bring it to life as we're considering you as a student for our programs. And so that does include your application, the fee, but then truly looking at your transcripts from everywhere that you've attended. We also ask that you submit a personal statement, and there's writing prompts on the website so that you can see that as well, because we're really truly looking to see how you are contributing to the field of nursing, how you hope to contribute through pursuing this degree. We also ask for 2 to 3 recommendations, and truly what we're looking for are folks who know the quality of your work. They know your potential, right? Whether it's a supervisor, folks who you've worked alongside in your roles in clinics and hospitals, right? And so we're really looking to just get a clear picture of how you partner and work with folks. And really we want to see, with all this education, what your potential is. And so another way to capture that is with your resume. And so, with the other documents that we get, sometimes we don't have the opportunity to see some of your certifications or all the different roles you've had and how diverse and dynamic your work experiences have been, and really how that's equipped you for this program. And so when we ask you to submit a resume, that allows us to view that as well. And then we also want to see a current unencumbered RN license. So as we mentioned, oh, and this one might be a little bit older. So we do admit for fall and spring, and we're currently accepting applications for the spring, which is great because the deadline is right around the corner. So if that's something where you're thinking a little more urgently that you'd like to get started, you'd have an opportunity, right? And so that deadline is October 1st. And and if you're thinking, well, you'd like to wait a little bit, that right now we're just kind of collecting data and information, know that the fall just opened up as well. And that one, the priority deadline closes here in a couple months, and then the final deadline is May 1st. And so know that you've got several months to be working on some of those deadlines.
These are
And some of
the-
those, oh yeah, for fall, May 1st is the application close. Yep. And so as we mentioned, nursing cast is where everything is housed. And then what you're ultimately the way that the process works, just to kind of provide clarity for you. So when you're working on the application and you submit the fee, you submit your resume, you submit the personal statement, and then you invite your recommenders to submit their evaluation of you. Once those steps have been completed, you actually enter into like received status within nursing cast, or completed status. And so essentially, once you move into verified status, that's when you know that you've just kind of struck the home run. You have crossed the finish line, right? And that means that you have that all of your recommenders, their evaluations have been received. And that also means that your transcripts have been received. And so essentially, when you reach that verified status, you are then put into Mona's file, where she can then have the ability to review your application. And so that's why it's really important that you give yourself ample time to be completing each of those steps in the process. I know cost is also important, but I also know with the VA, they often help supplement and offset some of those tuition costs, which is really great. So always speak with your supervisor, or HR, or was it Siri? if you're just kind of coming over to the VA here next door to our offices. But essentially the cool thing, actually, can we go back real quick? The coolest thing, what I love about these programs, yeah, this slide, is that anybody pursuing a master's degree with any of our indirect care programs, so veteran military healthcare, while you're pursuing that master's degree, you get our in-state tuition no matter where you're located. So whether or not you're in Colorado, you're going to pay that in-state tuition, which is $770, which is super affordable. The other cool thing I think that's really worth mentioning is all of our programs across the board are in the top 5% in the country in terms of the rankings. While this one is number one, also because it's the only one, which is so special, right? But Mona always tells me, she's like, we're just the first, we're not the only, because I really want more programs out there. But I think what's really important is that you know that you're also getting an affordable education that really is top quality and really a high ranked. We really work hard at equipping our faculty and hiring really incredible faculty to educate you, as you probably noticed earlier in Mona's presentation. While this slide is a little bit outdated, know that we still encourage folks who are coming back to school to fill out financial aid. Even though you're not at the bachelor level, it is still good to fill out as you're returning to school, because you do have options for loans, Stafford loans, Graduate Plus loans, and those, which are going to be much cheaper if you do need to take out loans. It's gonna definitely save you money versus putting anything on a credit card at any juncture or taking out a personal loan. All of those are going to be higher interest rates, which these interest rates are actually no longer correct. It's closer to 7 and 8.5% at this juncture, but it's still cheaper and less expensive than what 20, 22, 24% on a credit card. And those private loans are running about 1 to 2% higher than the loans you would get through the federal government. So just know that. But also 15 to 20% of our students who are admitted are awarded scholarships. And so once folks are admitted, we invite you to apply for scholarships. And so you'd get a separate application for that as well. All right.
Talk to the financial aid that's more specific to our military veterans and VA nurses. The VA is incredibly supportive with the NNEI scholarship. That is a national scholarship. They also have tuition reimbursement but the NNEI will cover almost the entire program. You do have to work with your education office, and it goes through your education office at the VA. I actually have the paperwork, so if it's something that you're interested in and you're accepted into the program, then I'll prepare the forms for you to submit. So be sure and let me know during our interview once you get to that point, and I'll be glad to do that for you. Military nurses or veterans or family members can also use the GI Bill. Then it's very important to contact and connect with our Office of Veteran Services. And I have the link here for you on that page. We have some other potential sources of scholarships. Pat Tillman Foundation has actually provided several of our students with scholarships. And the Jonas Veteran Scholarships for nurses and doctoral studies. Last cohort, we had 3 students get this, and it was a $30,000 each scholarship. So it was a huge scholarship. I'm not sure if it'll be that much in the future, but we were very fortunate to have 3 at our college and nationally. There is a book out there that has like 400 pages of financial aid for veterans, military personnel, and their families. It is on Amazon, and students have told me that it is very helpful. You can also look at the Veteran and Military Student Services page, and they have some links there as well.
I mean, honestly, in comparison to any other program out there, I would say there's more access to scholarships and support while you're going through school than any other program that we have and that I'm aware of. And so I think just even the sheer fact that Mona goes out of her way to provide you with all of this, I think it's just another an example of how she really cares for her students and honestly the care that you put into helping them succeed and thrive. I just think it's just another example that should be pointed out. So I'm just going to say it, Mona.
On the other hand, I really like to make sure that
I
take care of my
know.
folks.
I see that. It's
It's a
so
very
cool.
military thing. We have your 6, we have your back, we take care of our peeps, and we want to make sure that you're successful. So we really, I think, even at the college, have that throughout the faculty. We really want you to be successful, and we'll do what we can to help you get there. And to that end, we have a writing center at the college, and that will that's free. It's free. It's because you've already paid the fees and stuff for the college, so you might as well use it. We have a great library with great librarians, which I think they're now called information specialists. We have a Boots to Suits program, an academic success coaching, which is a great program that we started at our college. We have all kinds of supports and clubs and things to join. So I think we have a really great college in that respect. Did you want to add anything else? I know we're getting close to time. Liz, are you good?
No, I think that's good. Just because I want to respect folks' time.
So just next steps, take a look at our website, apply online, schedule an appointment with a graduate advisor, or you can get in touch with me, submit all the documents. We can send you the slides if you're interested. There's my contact and our senior enrollment advisor's contact. And I just want to thank you for taking care of our veterans from the bottom of my heart. I really believe that what you're doing is the most amazing work that can be done. So thank you. And any questions?